Hello and welcome to Voice new episode. And as I said, this is actually inspired by our little world, and we are basically uh, going to go through this thing in a very short, understandable, and usable way so that you guys can basically understand it, what it means, what exactly you're looking for, any kind of if you subscribe and comment what exactly you want to know more, definitely we would like to basically give, definitely Walt will be very happy to do that thing, and we can go from there. Let him go over here, either listen to him to us or he can go in his own way. Today's topic, I was just thinking a simple one: buy versus rent. Particularly, most anything you can probably apply to this principle, but mostly like I will talk about house. Just a disclaimer: I do have a Colorado realtor license, so uh, whatever I'm saying, not as a capacity of a realtor or something. I'm just giving it as a helpful advice as a friend or somebody to listen to for your financial advice. It's up to you what you should decide. Always check with your own realtor or own kind of financial advisor just for your final your situation, because everybody's situation is different and you need to have a proper thorough kind of going through your thing. But anyway, let's just talk about first is like a, let's say I'm right now in Denver. It's basically could be anywhere else. Any city is applicable. You really need to figure out how which one works, which one doesn't work for you. So here at present, let's say if you want to buy a house, a single family house, it's say around $500,000. So that's more or less, I think, on the downside. It could be a little more now. You can consider an average US house price too. Overall, it's a little down based on, like, again, it completely depends on your location. So just go to some of the very common website like Zillow or something and see the average house price or whatever you are trying to look for, get an estimate of how much is the house price of that. Now also, same place, like what would be the rent? Of course, you can go to rent.com, you can go to like Zillow has a Justimate or ZRental or those type of things. So from there you can figure out how much the rent of that thing should be. Typically, let's say, I'm just taking an example. So 2 3 bedroom and like say 2 bathroom or something like that. And that's probably, if it is something what we are doing, the rental would be say around say 2,700, 2,800, something like that right now. So the question is, from your perspective, whether you will basically pay $2,800 to rent the house, or you will basically buy a house like for almost like a half a million, and what is actually needed to accomplish that thing. Now, in order to do that thing, you have to do some basic calculations or basic analysis of yourself. And that's basically is, first is, remember some of the things. I will use some terminology probably, but I will always also explain. If you don't understand, make sure like you give a comment on that, and I would be more than happy to explain that to you. Biggest difference is here, you get no equity acquire with time, correct? This is probably the biggest difference. Why? What am I talking about? No equity, and here you do get an equity. Now, remember the term equity means, let's say you bought the house at 500,000 and this is 2025, and in 2 years or 1 year, let's say you just got, so 2026, this house went to 600,000 because market went up. So your equity is basically this minus this, of course, correct? $100,000. That's your equity. That's the money you actually acquired, or it's paper money probably, just like a stock or something. Like if you buy a stock at $100, went up to $150, is like $50 what you basically kind of gain. Till you execute or do the transaction, you do not get the money, correct? So it's a paper equity, so to say. So that equity is 100,000 here. However, for the same scenario, whether you stayed there at $2,800 for 1 year, there is no equity acquired. Actually, who is acquiring that kind of thing for the same house is the owner. So this is an owner situation, this is a renter situation. So if this scenario, you're always thinking, oh, probably I will be making a lot of money just by buying a house. But there are consequences which you really have to think about it, or what are the things which is necessary in order to accomplish this. First is market. It's all market-driven economy, correct? So effectively, there is no guarantee this will go up. This may go down to also 450,000. In that case, you are not really making a positive equity, you are actually going to make a negative equity, which effectively you have to pay back with period of time. So you have to basically hold on to the house. You try to sell the house in the market, it will really not work. Nobody will buy that thing. Why it can go down? It all depends on economy. It all depends on a whole lot of factors. How is the market? Whether people have money. Is the market is going up, going down? All those kind of things, correct? If there are a lot of layoffs in the local market. Whether there are pressures, like whether there are positive migration, negative migration, whole bunch of factors, correct? On the other hand, here in this particular scenario, you literally have two things. Here, if you buy your houses, remember one thing, you have to pay a whole bunch of things of your own too. There are property taxes, there are maintenance, there are a whole bunch of things which is basically under your bucket. You have to allocate some money. Now, a lot of time it is called, some of it consider escrow, correct, which is part of your payment, which mortgage company will typically ask you to pay for it. But part of it, like maintenance, is not really there. Maintenance is out of it. You have to pay out of your own pocket. So let's say you bought a house and suddenly some kind of a breakdown happens of your furnace or anything. You have to maintain that. It's going to come out of your pocket. This is not really the case over here. You can call the maintenance office or the owner to basically fix it. Big, if you are generally like not a person to not going to stay for long for some particular place, I would definitely say renting is probably more appropriate. Sometimes if you move to some place, initially I have seen people like to basically rent, check it out all the places, get a stabilize their financial thing in order, and then basically look for a house and then move on, right? So that's a very common deal over here. Now, couple of other things also, we will have other things in future just to buy a house, what is needed. One of the biggest thing of they're making a difference over here is also how much cash do you have, or at least the liquidity you have on your thing. Because nobody is going to pay you. Bank is, you cannot just go to a bank and say, give me $500,000 and they will pay it to you. There has to be you have to show some work. First is a job, of course, or something like a good payment thing. If you are a self-employed, also you have to show the money. So either over here, at least in US, you have to show a W-2, like how much money you're making. They also may like to see like how long you're making in that profession. If you're freshers getting just into the market, they may or may not be. How long the job market, how you are doing in this profession, what is your, how much you can put down the money. So down payment is another thing which is very important, because a lot of times, particularly nowadays, it is no longer that valid, but there are different type of loans you can have, which we will actually cover in a separate video. One is we can go conventional, FHA, interest only. There are a whole different type of loan. These are all loan types. We can basically go into that thing again in details. So whichever these are the different type of loans a bank is going to offer. So bank will not offer you unless you worth it. That means bank will see whether they can get the return of that money, correct? So in order to do that thing, they will ask you to put a down payment like 5%, 10%, 20%. That's typically what it is. So when you do that thing, that's one thing. Then there is also another thing is basically you have to consider is the interest rate. So interest rate is basically, let's say right now, like 6 to 7%. So let's say a simple calculation I'm giving. So let's say your house price is 500,000 and you are putting, let's say 20% down. That means you probably have to pay down like 200,000. So that means you are taking a loan of 400,000, correct? There are enough calculator in the market. You can simply Google it. You can see this 400,000, and if it is like, let's say at 7% interest, how much you have to make a payment for mortgage. So that's your mortgage amount, correct? So does this value, let's say this is coming out to be say 3,500. But remember, this is 3,500 is not just the mortgage payment you have to do. You have to pay for property taxes, you have to pay for the bucket for maintenance. Probably you have to have some emergency fund also just in case if you lose a job or something, correct? So all these things basically matters. So based on that, you really need to consider it will be added probably another $300 and $400 more. So effectively then it would be 3,900 rather than 2,800. But there is an advantage over here. If you are buying over here, a portion of this money based on your situation again, you can deduct as a mortgage interest payment. All right. So let's say you paid like 3,500 times 12, so that much like say 46,000 or something total over the whole period of thing, of which probably let's say $10,000 or $15,000 is basically your mortgage interest. That money you can deduct out of your tax payment, which effectively brings this down by probably let's say $1,000 or something effectively. So it would be 2,900, correct? So then the question is, should you not play 2,900 and 2,800 when you have a probability of making more equity with time? Because that's a decision you have to make. So it's just like market, just like stock market, I would say. I know this looks a little hazy or because I'm doing a particularly blackboard kind of operation. If you guys don't like it, let me know. I will try to correct it or do a different type of way. Again, your feedback will basically give me the way I want to do that thing. But again, when you want to, the basic thing is when you want to buy or whether you want to rent for anything, you really need to have this particular thing in mind. How much if you want to buy, whether how much you have to come down, correct? Whether this has a ability for appreciation or depreciation, what is going to happen over there, or price will go up or down, and whether there are any the associated cost with it, which also you have to take care of, and maybe some kind of a deductions which you really need to get out of it, versus what if you trying to rent, whether that makes any sense, correct? You have to evaluate that thing in your own situations, and based on that you can think what is right and what is wrong for you. So that's more or less for today. What I want to do based on your feedback, or if you have any interest, we will have further thing to go down to the each and every sections of it. Maybe we will consider one only on buying the thing, because explaining it very clearly how every step should work. I know like a lot of people are puzzled, because remember one thing, buying a house probably is the single most transaction you will have in your whole lifetime. There is nothing more than that. So it's so important. It's better to basically have a wise discussions and understanding. And after all, final decision is yours, and you should take it wisely. Till next time, please subscribe and like a comment. Take care.